This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
In my family, I'm the first generation business owner. Everybody's always worked at factories and mills and everything, so this is the first chance. I wasn't given anything. I didn't grow up with a lot of money at all. So what I don't want to happen is my kids to come in and destroy everything I worked for, because that happens a lot, but I want to give them good basics and teach them right and how to run a business.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now. So today's a good day. The man, the myth, the legend, John Shepard is here to tell us the story of Shep Transmissions. So John Shepard is an industry legend. First with DSMs, John went 770 with a manual trans all the way back in 2006. And now John's doing his thing in the GTR community. John, what's up?
Hi, Reed. Nice to talk to you.
How's it going?
Good.
So, John, I want to jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business. Like, how did you get started into what you're doing now or into the industry at all? What's your background?
My background really was I've always, as a child, loved taking things apart that probably shouldn't have been taken apart. Whether it be, I think I mentioned, like I remember my parents bought me this cool Star Wars little hovercraft, and you click a button, it would turn around, and I thought, well, I got to figure out how this works. And I remember taking this thing apart, thinking I could get it back together, and I just remember getting in a lot of trouble for doing that back then. So, and that was kind of one of my first memories of, okay, I like taking things apart, and then it led to my little RC cars back at the time, and BMX bikes and dirt bikes, and everything just evolved to the next bigger toy. And so I really didn't come from a background that had a lot of car experience or anything like that. I just kind of made it myself. My dad worked for a large steel company, Timken Steel, and I saw that it was a job that you just go do the same thing every day. You come back home, and he wasn't real happy. So I know that I wanted to make a change and do things a little differently. And so when I went to high school, I went through the vocational tech school for cars and everything, but it didn't really teach you enough. It's kind of more of a filler class, so I decided that right out of high school, I didn't waste any time. A month later, I was already enrolled in 3 hours away. I had to drop everything that I had living at home and just move 3 hours away to a tech school, and went there for 2 years and just doubled my classes, tripled my classes. Just got very aggressive with taking courses, and just to get that done, to get my foot in the door as a dealer. So
you knew right out of high school that you wanted to work on cars.
Right. Yeah, I did. I had for a short time I thought maybe a machinist would be kind of my thing, but then going back to what I loved, and that was trying to build race cars and stuff. Even when my first car was a 1980 Honda Civic, and little 1.3 liter 12-inch tire car, I think it was, and geez, I would pull the head off that thing and try to have the head milled, and just things that probably didn't work at all, but at least I was trying. And so I had always kind of had a passion for that. Yeah.
So you were pulling what was it, a 1980?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 3-barrel carburetor Honda Civic.
That's awesome. So when did you graduate high school? You graduated in?
89.
Okay. And then you get out of high school, you cram at tech school, just trying to get done and get into the dealership like as soon as, as quickly as possible.
Right.
So you're an impatient guy like me.
Yeah. I just wanted to move on. I didn't
get it done.
I never spent time in bars. I never really had much of a social life other than, being around car people and things like that. I really didn't waste any time getting in trouble.
Yeah. Best way to stay out of trouble.
Right.
Be under the hood.
Spend all your money on cars.
Yeah. You don't have any money to go driving.
Right, exactly.
So then you were about, so you get into the dealership. About how old were you when you got your first job at a dealership then?
I would have probably been 21 maybe, 20, 21. It was just months after I got out of tech school. Months after, I just kept on being persistent, and the dealership that I found, it was a Jeep and Eagle dealership, and they also had kind of like a marine division, so they had some boats hanging around. It was unique, but it was a family business, so I felt real comfortable being there. So that's when they gave me the first shot, and I'll never forget that.
So how'd you get them to give you a 21-year-old kid, a chance? Like, is it just turn in an application and go? Or?
No, I remember I dressed up in a overly dressed, and I was, they probably was like, what is this guy doing walking in like this? But, I said I would do anything. I actually worked in the parts department for a while and would kind of just help the techs out here and there. And I think they just saw some, that I wasn't just a kid. I did have some ability, and then the more and more jobs they gave me, the more that they trusted me, and I was definitely lead tech for many years.
Huh. So you're working at this Eagle dealership, and that eventually led to the obsession with DSMs?
Absolutely, yeah. It started whenever I was driving back and forth on the weekends from tech school. I was right around 89, 90 when the Talon came out, and I remember pulling up beside this car. I was like, what is that car? I've never seen anything like it before. Because you got to remember the cars back then, when you date, what they look like now versus what cars were available back then. You had, the Shelbys or something like that, and there was nothing to look like that back then. And that just happened. That was actually a coincidence that I went to the Jeep Eagle dealership. I didn't even know it was an Eagle at the time. And they were unloading these cars right off the truck, brand new black cherries and awesome looking. These cars just looked so sweet back then. There was nothing like it. It was like a spaceship running around,
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they started having timing belt issues and everything, so we got to take these, these engines apart that were just crazy for back then. And yeah, that's what started my love for those things.
Right. So you're pumped. You're going to do anything to buy one of those.
Exactly.
And when did you buy one?
94 was my first. It was my first. I bought a 1992 used off of another car lot. Found out the car had been modified and put back to stock when I got it, but it was crazy. It was still under warranty. I worked at the dealer back when those cars were under warranty, and so yeah, that was they were always in there for one thing or another. And I just slowly started tinkering with it. We had a good friend of mine at the time, or still a good friend of mine. He had bought one too, and we was like, well, it's that's how you get started. And all these your buddies. You want to do a little bit faster than your buddy, and then your buddy does a little bit faster. Little things make his faster than yours. And yeah. Looking back, it's crazy some of the things we try to do. It kind of makes you laugh, but the technology.
Like what?
I forget what was this boost controller called? It was an inline spring-loaded thing. Like every time you had to adjust the boost, you had to take this whole thing apart and turn this little Allen screw in a little bit more, and that's actually where Hallman boost controllers came. He's like, this is crazy. We got to do this. So he signed his own, and that's when we started testing his stuff for him. And then we just started going quicker and quicker. And I'm trying to think, we used to cut the air cans apart and modify the mass air sensors. All things that you look back and it's crazy to think that how far we actually went with what we were doing.
Yeah. So, how far did that car go? When did you stop modifying that car and kind of move on, or is that the car that you're known for?
No, that's actually not the car I was known for. And that car, it was a really, really clean car, and it didn't have a roll cage, and the tracks, did not let you in very often. So it got to the point where it had AC and it had everything that I didn't want to take out of the car. And it's you always find that fine line, like when do you turn this into a race car? Or when to stop, and GTR was the same way. So
yeah,
I I think I took that car down to, I believe, at 10.9, but that was in normal street trim, like you could drive it like that, and it didn't look like a race car. And that's kind of where I found, I guess, my little places. I like cars that looked as stock as possible on the outside, just kind of that sleeper effect. And but then I bought another one. It was a Black Cherry, actually an older one, in 1990, from Busher Racing at the time. He had it, and he was not having good luck with it. So I decided to buy that, and let's make this a race car, so I have a race car that I can actually not worry as much about, okay, let's take some weight out of it, let's do this, let's do that. And then I could get into the track because it was legal. And that's the car I really started pushing hard and racing it through IDRC and NOPI and all those at the time.
Right. So when was that? Early 2000s or late 90s?
That would have been late 90s, probably 99, right around there.
Okay.
2000,
and you're still
started.
And you're still working for the dealership at that time?
Yes. I was working for that dealer up until, I guess, shortly after that, maybe a few years after that, I was still working there.
And while you were modifying your first Talon, and then you get into the race car, word's starting to spread that you're doing side work. So you're working for the dealership full time and doing kind of side work for people,
right?
As well.
Yeah, because I they would give you the TSBs because we'd have stock cars coming in. They weren't really shifting that well. And I remember looking up these different part numbers and trying to get in because I did work in parts, which helped my knowledge of finding things on the. It's crazy, now looking back, we didn't even have like all the parts were on microfiche. You had to put this thing in and drag it around and look through this magnifying thing to find these part numbers, and it was so horrible to deal with. And I would call Chrysler, I'd be like, what if, can we use this in this transmission? And they obviously wouldn't. They wouldn't.
Yeah, they don't know.
Fit. Yeah, nope. This belongs to this car, and this is what you're going to use. And so I would just start ordering parts. Well, what if we try this and this? What if we try this gear ratio on this one? And I started taking around, and then I would try my buddies' cars, and we'd go race them, and thought, hey, sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But that was the learning curve of figuring them out, and that definitely led to, okay, well, this guy wants, he saw that my car ran well, he wants to bring his down. He'll, people driving from out of state to driving. That's when it started getting like, whoa, this is really something. I'm having people drive and ship things from out of state, just for me to work on. That was a cool feeling back then.
Right. So, did you ever quit the dealership job? Like, did you quit that job or just slowly transition out into what you're doing now?
That job that I had, no, I didn't quit. They ran into some financial troubles and they closed the doors. We had no idea, and we went to work there one day and the gates were locked and we couldn't even get our tools out until they let us. So that was a rough time because I just had a baby, and that's kind of like, I'm already deep into it. Now I have payments, I have a house, I have all this stuff, and now your job just gets taken out from under you. So they had worked out an agreement with another dealer that they would interview us and hire us if they needed us, and so I worked at one dealer for a little bit. I couldn't stand it. It was just a bigger dealer, and you're basically a number there, and all they cared about was your production numbers. They didn't care about your work. So I didn't last there very long. And then I found another smaller dealer that it worked better for me. But at that time, I was racing every other weekend, and then I had so much work that I was having come in. I started looking back. I'm like, I almost don't have time to work here. I'm just getting my hours clocked in just to be able to leave and then do all the side work that I had at the time. And we tried a funky arrangement where I'd work there during the day and then I would rent their bay at night and then use their bay, and that got old for both of us, honestly. It didn't last very long, and I was like, I got to, I got to, now's the time. I'm kind of stagnant here. I can't do any more with the time that I have. And yeah, that was a scary time, though. It had another baby on the way. My son was being born, so that's a risky
Wow.
deal. You have, a paycheck every week, and you have your insurance, which is huge, back then. So having a stable insurance, for when you're having a child and all the things that can, actually happen when you have a child, and that was a big decision for me to do.
Yeah. So what made you make that decision?
I remember talking to a good friend, Jason Siebels. You interviewed him.
Yeah.
We had known each other before that, and he's always given me good advice. And he was like, if you do go to work, it's gonna always be there. You'll have more work than you need. And of course, I didn't believe him. I'm like, sure you're saying that, but that's what really it took. It was him to say, just give me the extra little bit of confidence that I needed to go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Looking back, how important was that push from your friend?
That was very, very important. Yeah. I don't know. I probably would have eventually been forced to do it, but just taking the initiative, doing it on my own was nice.
Yep. So why not just work for somebody else? Why take all the risk of starting your own company?
That is a good question. I don't think I could have really worked for anybody else around here. There's not really, you either have a dealership or maybe some smaller repair shops, but I definitely didn't see the room to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that I even question anything about working for anybody else, honestly.
Yeah. The biggest hurdle that people have is a fear of failure, especially when they have a family like you did.
Mm-hmm.
But you survived and thrived. Would you have done anything differently?
I guess that's tough, because if you would do things differently, you wouldn't maybe learn the things you need to learn that would help you later. We definitely had some struggles because I didn't really go into. I wasn't like a person that wanted to start a business and then learned all the business techniques and everything you need to do. I'm a car guy that turned his passion into a business. So you don't necessarily learn how to run a business the right way, I guess you could say. When you pay your taxes, when you file this, we were actually still on manual payroll when I started. When I had just a few guys here, we would I'm probably getting off subject here, but I remember actually we'd have to figure out taxes manually and write them on a paper and do all the calculations manually with a calculator to get paychecks. And yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot harder back in the day, or if you don't know who to call.
But even things like writing, doing your paychecks manually really makes you learn what you're paying and why, versus just in QuickBooks you just enter the number and it just gives you a number to spit out and you pay this. So that's what I mean by learning. You definitely have to go through the growing pains to learn. And definitely I'm not perfect at all. I've still learned today. Things that I should have done a long time ago, or maybe you kind of get sometimes in a zone and you need to, and I think Martin said you need to sometimes take a vacation or maybe step back and take a chance to look at what's going on, because it's really hard when you're really always busy. It's really hard to take that step back.
Definitely. You got to gain some perspective for sure.
Yeah, right.
So, John, you made some pretty significant waves. I mean, you're known in the industry from DSMs, and now in the GTR community, you guys are slaying it. But do you doubt yourself, and do you ever think, what if it doesn't work, even now?
Yeah. Every time we try something new, whether it be a new clutch, a new gear set, whether it be just a design change or some mod that we're trying, literally, I don't know how you can't doubt yourself, because you really, like I said, if you're in your comfort zone and you're doing everything cookie cutter and you're not really pushing things, yes, you probably wouldn't doubt yourself at all. But you don't progress doing that, and surely you're not going to have a car that had a transmission that was supposed to be for 450 horsepower, or being able to hold a 2,000 horsepower by being comfortable and not taking chances.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I definitely sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, a lot actually. Like, oh man, I wonder if I should have should I have done this, or should I have maybe adjusted this clearance a little differently, or should I allow this or that? And oh yeah, it's many nights just waking up out of a dead sleep, just thinking. Or sometimes that's where I get my best ideas. Honestly, I'll just literally wake up and think, okay, let me try this tomorrow and see if I can get it to work like this. And but none of that matters until you go to the track and you're watching that car that you have this transmission in, and you don't know if it's going to launch. You don't know if it's going to come out of second gear. You don't know. You don't know until it goes on the track what it's going to do. And these are all your friends you're dealing with. So we have very good personal relationships with many of the vendors that we deal with. And so you're feeling their pain if something doesn't go right, but you also feel their excitement, when they make a pass or if they make a record pass. And there's not many times where my hair's not standing up on the end, my arms. Just you're waiting that thing to get to the end. It's like, all right, now it's good. So yeah, there's definitely some major highs and major lows.
Definitely. So if you're pushing the limits of a transmission, do you just work with your customer and tell them straight up, like, hey, we're going to push the limits here. We're trying this, and you got to just be as upfront as you can with the customer? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, sometimes I probably lose some sales because of that. Sometimes a little too upfront. Some people, trying to sugarcoat things to get a sale. I'm not like that at all. I don't. Anybody that deals with me knows that I'm not like that. I'd rather tell you it's probably going to break, but let's see how far we can push it, and we learn from it. So I probably, I'm not the best salesman for my business for sure, but I think that it pays off in the end, and I think hopefully the customers and especially the shops we deal with understand that I'm not gonna bullshit them at all.
Yeah. So sometimes stuff breaks for sure.
Yeah.
And you got to overcome it.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you explain the worst experience that you've had in business and how you overcame that experience?
Yeah, they're probably more on the accounting side of things. Just as far as starting a business and running a business, the worst experience was easily. I remember in 2006 or so, I had used it. When I first started out in 2003, when we became incorporated. I actually been doing business before that, but I'm like, this is when we're starting an actual corporation and we're filing taxes and doing the right thing. So I used to use a small local accountant here, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know what to look for. I had no idea. So I remember in 2006 looking through the books, I'm like, I don't understand why there's like these general journal entries. Like I give them a specific, like if I'm using my credit card to use this or that, they should be categorized under maybe parts and supplies versus this. And I'm looking through here myself thinking, I don't know if this looks right. And I don't think that things are explained in detail, and I surely don't want to get in trouble. So I started looking for different accountants, and I found a new accountant that, I said, well, let me look at your QuickBooks, and she's running through, and it came obvious very, very quickly that she's like something, he's not doing his job. This is messed up. This is messed up. We don't even know where to start. So you basically have two choices. We just take the end of last year where he said you were at and start over and hope nothing happens. But really you need a good foundation, and that is you need to start over. That went back to going through every credit card statement, every bank statement, everything that I spent, and manually starting over like we had a new QuickBooks file.
Jeez.
That was horrible. Because sometimes, when you're busy, you can't remember 2 months ago, and you're trying to remember years before. And that was a very, very costly thing, and not even, an accountant better. And that's something that we're kind of faced again today. Not that, the people we use are really good, but you have to find somebody that you can grow with and not maybe reach their max, because when they're maxed out, they're not going to give you the best service either.
Yeah.
So we're actually facing that again. I mean, things are going smooth, but I still need to kind of look forward and think, okay, every single year we've had a major increase in sales and gross gross and everything. So I need to look forward what's going to happen in 5 years. I don't want to wait until we're so far behind that we can't make sense of the mess we have. So
right.
We're kind of in the middle of that right now, actually, trying to interview some new accountants and maybe learn some things that, it's kind of Starting to learn.
It's a process.
Yeah, tax planning is probably as important now because you're dealing with larger amounts of money, and
Yeah.
Maybe it's
And that same percentage means a lot more now.
right. Yeah, maybe it's a little better if you use your money to do this at the end of the year, maybe versus this, or setting up a simple plan versus for retirement or something. And we're finding that probably has a huge a huge, I don't know what the word is, huge effect on how you can spend your business money wisely.
Sure. Yeah, to make sure that it works for the business and not for the government.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the accounting firm that I just interviewed, I forget, he had a great term for it. We're not trying to find ways to cheat the IRS, but we're trying to play. We're playing a game. We're seeing who's winning here. We're trying to. I forget how he exactly said it, but it was the way he said it. I was like, I like this guy. Just trying to beat them at their own game, not necessarily cheat.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take any chances. And he's very conservative with things like that. We'd never
right.
take chances on what we write off or anything like that. And
you play a game, but you play it within the rules. But
exactly.
the idea of the game is to win.
Yes.
Definitely. So, John, tell us something that you're doing right now that has you fired up.
Well, I mean, right now we're just very involved with a lot of big builds, which
all GTR stuff.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, we still do a lot of Mitsu sales, but the market's starting to probably taper off. It's probably going to go much further with development on the Mitsu stuff, but GTR is definitely. I can see those being the next Supras, the next muscle car of our age, and besides just the amount of builds we're doing for cars that I know will run sevens, we're also working on different DCT platforms that really have the potential to maybe topple, maybe knock down the GTR, and it's pretty exciting, pretty scary at the same time. You can
such as tell us about these other DCT trans. Come on.
Yeah. I'd rather not say until it's done.
Okay.
There's actually two of them we're working on, two different platforms. But it might be a total fail, and that's the scary part of running a business is where do you spend your money wisely? Do you keep it in the safe places you're going to make money, or do you really invest and try to move forward? And that's what it's all about, I guess. How much of the risk do you want to? How much of the money do you want to risk for a potential reward?
Yeah. So what's involved in developing and finding out about new applications? So, is that a year-long process?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we don't have any of the answers given to us. We don't know. For example, I'll go back to the GTR. That way we're not, so when that started back in, say, 2009, we started doing transmissions for another shop, and we had no idea what was going on. We had, I knew it was a dual clutch transmission, but we didn't really know mostly the TCM strategy side of things, what would it let you do, what wouldn't it let you do. Cars back then, they would run 10s and they would just go into neutral. We wouldn't know why. There was no logging back then, so we had no idea what was going on. So trying things like that is a very, very hard way to go. But it made us learn a lot about them. So I guess the answer is just trial and error. You have to figure things out your own because the OEM is not going to give you the answers. They're not going to say, well, at this torque threshold, it's going to shut this down. They don't give you any answers like that, and they're surely not going to help you modify the cars to be able to have potential warranty claims.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
So in the development process, is that your baby?
Yeah, I like to be very involved with the shop. I don't really have anybody that helps me develop things, so all the ideas really I come up with. It puts a lot on my plate, but I love doing it still because I love doing that more than say entering an invoice into QuickBooks. I'd much rather be down at the shop thinking of things, and it just keeps your mind into it more.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about like kind of the tech side, and it seems to me that that's the kind of business that you are. It's not about marketing hype and yada yada.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward. This is how I do things. We try to make products that work, and hopefully the products sell themselves. Is that pretty much the gist of it?
Yeah, I do. I don't really. I don't spend a lot of time on advertising. Really, you probably find very, very few ads that we've ever advertised in. I'm not saying that's the smartest thing to do, but it's kind of just the way I've always done things, and it's worked for me. So why change it at this point? We have such a large amount of really, really, really good dealers that they trust us and I trust them, and so they basically, I feel that they advertise. I mean, that if you have a large shop using you and only you, that says a lot about the relationship and who they trust,
Right. Do you have a lot of competitors?
There's a few, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Nobody wants everybody to have the whole pie. They all want to.
For sure.
And honestly, there's plenty of work to go around. We could not handle every single job, obviously. We struggle with the volume that we have in right now, so we're always thinking of, okay, how do we turn more product, because when there's more coming in, you have to get it out, or at the end of the day, you're still not making any more money and you're upsetting customers. So we've struggled with that in the past. Sometimes it's very hard to anticipate the volume. Like it wasn't that many years ago, I was like, this is just, we'll kind of use GTRs and we'll have maybe a one or two come in a week or something, and this would be cool to make some extra money on these, and be able to keep some more guys employed and not have to worry about slowdowns at all. And then it turned into, now there's days that we get sometimes 5 or 6 units, sometimes more in a day, that'll just come on the truck, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I gonna handle this? So you have to react quickly, and we were really had, and another really hard problem is you have to rely on suppliers as well, because there's whether it be gears or clutch discs, you're relying on so many different outside vendors that everything has to work perfectly for everything to go smoothly, and that doesn't always happen. I'm sure it's one part gets back ordered from one vendor, and that messes your whole schedule up.
Yep.
I know we have, it was before this year we did good, but the year before, Texas 2K is the big race now, for GTRs, and we were way behind. We were telling people we could not take any more transmissions in, and that was a horrible feeling. So after that, we really, really started. I was like, we have to figure this out. We have to figure out how to make this work smoother, and that's when I really started getting back into the shop. Because you find yourself just doing paperwork and you kind of get disconnected a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have to get back in the shop, and so I actually was in working with the builds just like I was building them back in the old days, I guess. And kind of like, okay, well, as a business owner, you look at things a little differently than an employee. So I was like, okay, well, I can see if we did this and this, then I could think that'll save us some time, and it's really paid off. So but then I found out that I love doing clutches. It's kind of like an art, I call it. Maybe it's kind of a twisted art, but everyone's a little different, and I love just being down there and just doing it myself. So I haven't let go of that. It's probably been about a year and a half now that I took over just doing every single GTR clutch, which means I probably need somebody up in the office doing my job, because it's made me work twice as hard. But I can't let it go because I love doing it. And I think it's also helped because when I do things like that, I can, as an owner, I can talk to the people that whether it be Eggs or Dots, and I can say, hey, let's change this a little bit. Why don't you move this, and it'll help us do this. And that has made significant changes happen in the last year.
Yeah. So you were talking about stuff being on the shelf and having to deal with back orders. Do you just try to stock more items now?
Yes. Yeah, you have to. It's tough because you can have, say, a part that you could sell easily and make just profit selling parts, but you're going to you're going to screw yourself and not be able to have the transmissions continue to flow through the shop like you need to. So
Yeah.
you find yourself hoarding parts, and it's horrible. You know, it's not, you know, you might have 20 gear sets on the shelf, but you don't know if they're going to be done in time for the next time you're going to need them. So you have to hoard them, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. Constant battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads perfectly into what's your Achilles heel?
Trying to do everything myself. I have, just because I started everything myself, I've always done everything, and it's very, very hard for me to let go and trust people. So I just end up just doing everything. Like, even if it's payroll, it's like, well, I'll just do it myself. You know, it's rather than take the time to babysit and train people, I just do it myself. So that's really, hasn't really hurt our business, but it's definitely put a toll on my social life. I really, the only time I ever get to go out or vacation or anything is going to see races, and where I see, whether it be a Texas 2K or a shootout or something, I always try to fly if I can, because it's great to meet the people that we deal with all the time, but it's also great to get away a little bit, and that's kind of my vacation. So I never get actually away out. I never get out of the business, but it is kind of the only way I get to get away, and I learn a lot doing that still. But yeah, I think you'd probably find a lot of business owners really hard for people to let go.
Yeah.
Because it's all in your brain, and how do you train somebody to do to think like you're thinking?
Uh-huh.
And it's very hard to even be in, like, on the email. I do all of the sales email for GTRs now, and it's a large amount of email, and I would love to have somebody else do it, but at the end of the day, I don't know that anybody's going to answer the questions like I would answer them. Maybe that's bad, but
well, they're super technical.
Yes.
I feel like the amount of tech questions that you have to deal with on a daily basis, that seems like that's a full-time job in itself.
Yes.
How do you manage I mean, I don't even know how you would do that. Answering all those emails, and like the more transmissions that are out there, the more tech questions that are coming back. So even if you had guys that were producing more trannies, you're going to have to be answering all the tech-related diag problems or
Right.
or potential issues.
Yes, that's the only way I've found that is just bulldozing with more hours. I work way too much. You know, it's not healthy how much I work.
How many hours a week do you spend at the shop?
I usually don't go by week. I just know that I get out there usually 8:39, and I don't usually stop until 10, 11 o'clock sometimes at night. That goes on pretty much every day. Unless my and it's definitely, that's a hard thing about business is it puts a huge toll on your family, and it's hard to manage that time. I'd love to be able to sometimes, it's like it's 6 o'clock rolls around, you see your employees clocking out 6:01, they're out the door, and it's like you're sitting there like, I still have a full day of work to do. It's tough. I need to find a better way. That's probably my biggest problem.
Yeah. John, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal?
What I can see, and other than finding a way that the business can run itself a little better, I want to actually give a firm foundation, because this is in my family. I'm the first generation business owner. Everybody's always worked at factories and mills and everything, so this is the first chance. I wasn't given anything. I didn't grow up with a lot of money at all. So what I don't want to happen is my kids to come in and destroy everything I worked for, because that happens a lot. But I want to give them good basics and teach them right and how to run a business, and look forward and kind of do the things that I've done. And because I have 3 children, and I'd like, if they want to, obviously I'm not going to force them, but they have a place, because it's really scary. It looks, when you're looking at the job market now, and you got people that they're very, very qualified that don't have jobs.
Yeah.
So I'd love to train them my way, and they still have to go to school, and they still have to get really business degrees. Or that's one thing I regret not doing, is taking business courses when I was going to tech school, because I never at that time had an interest in doing it. So I didn't take any business classes, and I didn't really know how to type very well as far as computer typing. The keyboard, like
Yeah.
hand
Hunting and pecking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I still do that today, but I can type very fast with my really twisted way to type. It's not.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I rely on spell check a lot because half the words I'm like, what was I trying to write here? It's not exactly where my fingers were going, but it. So, luckily, a lot of things are pretty good at correcting your mistakes now. So.
Yeah.
But that's my goal, is to have some place for my children to call their own, and hopefully, again, that's sometimes the children, your children take advantage of that, and I've seen it happen many times, and that's exactly why it's kind of what happened to the dealer that I worked at. It's the dad really worked hard and to build this huge foundation of a business, and it can be taken down so quickly. That's the scary part.
I think it's the difference between it being handed to you and you having to work for it.
Right, exactly. And I don't think I'll ever retire, so they'll never get me out of their hair. I'll probably be, 75 years old running through there still bitching about, okay, you did this wrong, but.
So you're in a good spot, though, now, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. So, John, we like to take action on Do It for a Living. Can you suggest one action item to our listeners that they can do this week to improve their situation?
Probably what I see as far as when I deal with people, email responses are, to me, very important. I'd like to be a phone guy, but honestly, it's just a reality. I don't have time to be on the phone as much because I am in the shop quite a bit. So for me, email, I have to stay on top of it. It's my number one priority of the day. There's always you got a few emails here and there you can or don't have time to respond to for whatever reason. Maybe you're waiting on a reply or something, but my goal every day is to get every single email done, and I have really stuck to that throughout the years, and I think that it's really helped because you get an email, you don't get an email back, and then it gives the customer a chance to maybe, well, if he's not emailing me back, maybe he's not very good at customer service, or it's just that delay in not emailing anybody back, and I've really, really tried very hard to make sure that I email people back right away.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it sets up sometimes if they don't get an email right away, like you happen to have a few hours off in your day, and you don't get an email back, and then you kind of get sometimes like forwards and forwards and forwards of emails, like, well, what happened? You didn't reply to me right away. But for the most part, no, I think it works great. Email still my number one priority of the day.
Okay. So action items, stay on top of your email.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mission right there.
Yeah, it's a huge task, but probably too much. I mean, that's especially with today's technology, your cell phones, everything is accessible so easy that I do find, and that's another thing that I got to change. I do find when I'm at home, or whether it be at dinner, or whether it be on Sunday, it is right there, and I cannot not. It's impossible for me not to check my email. So, yeah, that would be. It would also be nice, to put a stopping point at the end of your day, but I don't know that that's possible for a business owner.
I do no phone Fridays.
That would be sweet.
When I get Friday when I go home, I just get home, I put my phone on the end table, and I don't look at it again until Saturday.
Oh man,
no phone Friday. It's like a vacation like you have never experienced before. It's the best thing ever.
I hear about that. People go out and they'll all leave their cell phones at home, and it's so hard to think about that. It's so hard to even fathom.
It's funny. You go out to dinner. I'll go out to dinner with my wife, and I'll just like be looking around, and I'll reach into my pocket. My phone's not there, and I'm like, oh, there's this whole world outside of what's on your phone.
Yeah. I definitely came from a time we didn't have phones, so. Cell phones, not phones. But
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, John, we made it all the way to quick answer questions.
All right.
So I'm just going to fire these things at you and fire them right back.
Sure.
Fair enough?
Yep.
So tell us about a game-changing product you've seen in the last year.
Last year's tough. I can't say that I know anything game-changing in the last year. We've had definite improvements in a lot of things, but probably for us, as far as what we use and what we rely on, probably the Ecutech software that allowed us to log the TCM I don't know when it started. It's definitely been more than a year. I mean, it's probably been several years now, so maybe 3 or 4. But so it's not really a great answer to your question, but that to us was a game changer because it's like being able to, run your car on the track and oh, it was misfiring. Why? Or it laid over at the top end. Why did it do that? And okay, we'll just run it again and try. You really had no direction to go, and being able to actually log and see what's happening. What the ECU was targeting, what did the target match? Why didn't it match? Was the oil pressure low? That whole it was a huge eye-opening experience that we did not have for many years dealing with this transmission. We had no idea what was going on. So that to me has been the biggest game changer, probably in the last 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about the limitation of the GTR trans development being the control side. And so this is what you're talking about.
Right.
You just didn't, before this, you didn't have a way to monitor what was happening.
Right, other than just guessing as to why did it go neutral.
Yeah.
We had found why back then, but it took the logs to really show why things were happening. And, torque limit requests, all the things that were happening and why, and we still learn to this day. I do have a lot of logs that get sent to me, and literally I will just surf through the logs, and it's a lot quicker now. And you kind of okay, what's not happy about this? So let's check this, let's do this, and see what changes. And you can actually see a change, and that's what's helped a lot development. There's no way these cars would have run 7s without that. No way.
Right. So what software program are you using on a daily basis?
QuickBooks. For sure. Yep. QuickBooks is the software we use for most everything. Not that I'm a fan of it sometimes because it's frustrating, but we use we use QuickBooks for anything payroll, estimates, sales orders, invoicing. We use it quite a bit. All of our credit card processing is through them. They're not the cheapest on credit card processing, but they make it so easy for you to just pay an invoice. I just talked to another software place about credit card processing, and some of them integrate with QuickBooks, but you just can't send an invoice. And I'm like, well, if we have to, I think about it, it seems initially great to save money on credit card processing, but okay, how many
convenience?
Yes, how much is that convenience going to cost you? Is it going to cost you one sale, or is it going to cost you maybe some accounting fees? Is it going to and just the ease and quickness of just sending an invoice is priceless to me.
Fair enough. How about a favorite app? Do you have a favorite app that you use daily?
I don't too much. Snapchat? No, I was kidding. I hope nobody else used that lame excuse, but I think Tony said Pinterest, I think. No, I don't use it much. Maybe the Facebook app or something, but we use Google Drive. That's, I do access that quite a bit. And lately we've switched to we're still kind of in the process of switching to Vonage business phones, which is a pretty huge learning curve, but I did find an app that was really cool that they have, and it allows me to call a customer without really giving my cell phone number, because I don't really, like you said, there's really not a lot of personal life as there is in this business. So to give your cell phone number out, it just takes one more step out of your little life. And so it's been a struggle, because if I'm not there, how am I supposed to call a customer? Because I don't really want to give my number away to everybody, because then they give it to somebody and all of a sudden your phone's ringing nonstop. Yep. Mm-hmm. So that allows you to call, and it just leaves the number that you're calling from as a shop number, like it should. So that's been pretty cool to try to learn. Yeah.
What's the name of that app?
It's just the Vonage business app. I guess you have to have, I guess, a Vonage account. I don't think there's any other way around that, but we're just switching to Vonage phones here.
Cool. What's your favorite shop tool?
Last year I would have said probably the lathe, because I tinker so much on the lathe in Bridgeport. But lately, because like I mentioned, I started going down the shop, like, what is slowing us down? Why are we slow? Why can't we get things done quicker? Mm-hmm. And we take no shortcuts when building say a GTR trans, every single thing comes apart, which means there's a massive amount of cleaning. So it's like, all right, it's very easy for me to see that cleaning, these are supposed to be quick answers, aren't they? Okay.
No, go for it.
I was like, so cleaning is our huge problem. What are we going to do? And so we bought some ultrasonic machines, and that alone doesn't really solve the problem, but the way we approach it, and okay, we clean this step, it goes in here, and then we can use it versus what we were doing before. So I'd say the most valuable right now is the ultrasonic machines.
And when you get a tranny in, every individual part goes through the ultrasonic, and there's cleaning processes before that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Every single part goes through there now, whether it be the rear diff case, and that does create a lot of extra work because you don't want to throw a complete diff in there, because then you have the bearings that have little cavities that you don't want water in and rusting or anything. So it does create more work, but it creates a better end product, and we want that final step to be like the crystal clean. This is like hospital grade, kind of clean. And to do that, we do spend a lot of time pre-cleaning products. That way we don't contaminate the end process.
Yeah.
It's not really how they're made to be used, but it's what we found to work really well.
Cool. Yeah, ultrasonic cleaners are badass.
I never believed the myth. I was like, oh, how's this pot? But no, I believe it now. So.
You drinking the Kool-Aid?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's just because we started seeing maybe health concerns with, we have a lot of solvent tanks in the shop, and every solvent tank needs an air gun beside it because every part that comes out of solvent tank needs dried. And we really started seeing the amount of just airborne vapor in the air. It's like, this is not good. Okay, so we change this now. And we're also looking at some air exchangers for the shop to get clean air in and out quicker and everything. So it's basically you're taking a lot of transmissions apart, and they're nasty and they smell, and that's something we have to kind of, it's a little part of the business that you kind of step back and look like, why do we do this for so long like this? We need to do this. And that's one of the hardest parts. And I remember, like I said, Martin said about taking a vacation. I don't take vacations, but I do, whenever I was on the plane, I'm like, let's make my time productive on the plane. So I actually listened to most of your podcasts as much as I could on the plane. So that was really cool, and it gave me a lot of ideas.
Yeah. Cool. I'm glad that you're finding it useful. I mean, that's the whole idea here, right? It's just to kind of have an open forum to share ideas in the way that everybody, successful people are doing things.
Yeah, I think that I've learned something out of everyone that I've listened to, whether it be whatever app they use or something, but I've learned little tidbits out of everything.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking some time today to kind of give us the way you do things so we can learn something from you. Appreciate it. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was like, it wasn't a secret. I'm not very, I'm pretty shy. And actually, I don't know if shy is a word, but I'm not comfortable with interviews. So I definitely was not necessarily regretting. I don't know the word here. I was hesitant.
Yeah,
I was like, oh man, this is the day. This is the day I got to. And so no, I'm glad we had the chance to do this. And it was crazy. I look back at QuickBooks again. I just happened to, there's another shop close to your name that you interviewed, and I was like, oh man, we've done business back in 2005. I don't know if you realize that, but we've done business back that far. So
yep,
it's cool.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny. I remember in 2005, I was fresh out of college, and we were in a backyard, and I was building a DSM for a customer, and we bought that transmission.
I remember looking at I was like, it wasn't even a stage at the time. It was like a race trans with this, and I was like, wow, that goes back, 10 years now.
I know, crazy how time flies, yeah?
Yep.
Cool, John. Tell us, how do we connect with you and your company?
Probably the easiest way is sheptrans.com. We have a contact through there, through the various places, the Trevor's extension, my extension, but email for me is still the easiest way. And some shops prefer phone calls, some customers prefer phone calls, but I'd rather have, hey, quick email, hey, can you call me, versus trying to grab the phone every time, because sometimes I'm there's only so much to go around. And if I'm out there building a clutch, I find that people try to call, and I say, I can't stop. It's something you cannot do. Middle of something, because your mind gets distracted just for that little bit, and you can go back and forget something or make a mistake that can cost both you and the customer a lot of money. So definitely my preferred contact is email, and that's just direct at sales@sheptrans.com. That all goes to me, and I disperse it. I might be looking at a different kind of software. Like you said, I think Tony mentioned Freshdesk that he uses. I'd like to kind of learn a little more about that to see if it might work for us a little better.
Well, John, hey, once again, man, I just want to say thanks a lot. Really appreciated it, taking some time. I know that you're slammed, and I learned a lot, and I'm excited to have had the opportunity to kind of hear the story, and now I know that your first car was a Honda. So.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks again, too, and I think that it will help a lot of people. Some of these mistakes that people have made that's pretty huge differences in how you start a business.
Yeah. Yep. The idea here, hopefully we can help some people out.
Yes, I will continue to keep on listening, and hopefully I have more plane flights to listen to. It's definitely
your mini vacation,
and it keeps your mind. It doesn't. It doesn't make you fall asleep, and that's the thing. It really is just engages you, and you just want to hear more, and that's been great.
Yeah. Thanks again, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app, tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests. Thanks for listening, and good luck.